All the years of the Daily Show, I never did this. Like, went somewhere and interviewed somebody.
Thanks for having me.
I'll just start in sort of simply, which is, in your mind, what are the biggest hurdles to counteract toxic exposures for veterans, and more specifically, burn pit exposure?
I would like to see us stop using some of the technologies and the processes that we've used to, get rid of stuff when we're deployed.
You're saying digging a hole and burning everything in it with jet fuel might not be the answer
I'm just saying
in a modern society.
I'm just saying that's one thing that going forward, I think we should get our hands around.
Right.
The second thing is I want to make sure that, and I am determined to, as secretary, ensure that we are not passively waiting for information to help us address this problem so that we can be in a position to get the care and the benefits that our vets have earned. So,
why do you think that hasn't occurred? Certainly, burn pit exposure, not a surprise. It's been 11 years. What more?
Actually longer, John.
Probably longer.
Right, because it goes back really to the first Gulf War.
What information are they waiting for?
The researchers are trying to establish to a level of that's demanded by statutes, by laws, the certainty of the causation of these illnesses.
Soldiers are dying of these illnesses, and they can't get their health coverage and their benefits. So can you see that it would be difficult for them to hear we're still chasing down information?
Yeah, absolutely.
When the information seems to already exist. These were outlawed in America in the 70s.
I don't pretend that my frustration reaches anywhere near
Sure.
the veterans' frustration. But I am frustrated.
Sure.
Which is why I made this the first thing we did out of the box. We have now established a presumption that if you have rhinitis, if you have sinusitis, if you have asthma, we presume those came from your time in the military. And therefore you qualify for care and benefits.
I think veterans would all say sinusitis, rhinitis, and asthma
Not
is
enough.
fine, but that's not what's killing them.
Do I think that's done? No, I don't. And I won't stop until the presumptive lists include well beyond that very meager list that we've established.
What gave you the confidence that the science or the information had reached the level where you felt comfortable giving presumption, whereas with these other constrictive bronchiolitis,
Right.
Lymphomas, colon cancers, why do you feel like the information hasn't reached that level?
We're able to look and make the decision on these first three conditions based on.
What were the metrics?
I wish I had.
Okay.
I want to be able to answer the
right.
question. I just don't.
All right.
I haven't.
But you
I don't
were
have that.
satisfied that met the statute?
I was satisfied. Our team of clinicians, researchers
Right.
told me we can establish that these three conditions are presumed to be caused by being for their military service in these geographies during this time.
So if your science team gives you a recommendation for these other conditions, then you will sign them, you will pass those through.
Not only that, I'm asking them to
So
go get as much science as there is on this.
is the holdup in your mind money
No.
or information? So it's not money.
John, we've just submitted a budget for about $270 billion. It's the second biggest budget in the federal government. A little less than half of that is for the provision of health care. We're not asking what the cost is.
So I'm not sure then if it's not money and it's not science.
The biggest hurdle is establishing that link, that scientific link. And I will be damned if I don't establish it.
I don't think you could say that we haven't established a link between exposure to jet fuel and certain cancers and autoimmune disorders. We have.
I want to make sure that I also recognize that we do operate within the context of a series of requirements, and we have not been yet able to meet the requirements.
Let's at least help people understand what this bar that we have to reach entails.
The process in the statute requires us to meet a certain degree of threshold.
What is that threshold?
Getting to taking one path to that threshold is too slow. Congress, going back to the Vietnam vets and Agent Orange, required us to work with the National Academies of Science.
From what I've seen is they've done a ton of National Academy Science studies. And people wave those all the time and say, no link's been established. But unfortunately, those studies all say insufficient data. And that data is not going to be getting any better because it's provided by DOD. And if it's insufficient in 2008, it's going to be insufficient in 2020.
I believe that there are rules of this
But why can't you define those rules?
I'm sorry, I wish I could, and maybe that's my weakness.
How do you know when you've achieved them?
Because we have a series of requirements that we have to meet that we've been running against for years. And what we've been doing is running against them. We've been running against them with one strain of information that comes from the National Academies of Science.
Right, which is paid for by the VA, and the information comes from DOD.
And what I'm saying is that's a mistake. We should get the information, and we now are getting information from a much wider range of science.
Doesn't that information already
It does exist. Yeah, it does exist. And I'm saying go get it and let's put it into our decision-making process.
And so I'm really trying to understand what's the bar you're looking for, because to not be able to articulate that clearly really troubles me. I don't, and by the way, I don't doubt your empathy and I don't doubt your care. I really don't, and that's why I'm here talking to you.
The beauty is I don't really give a shit,
As you should.
So I don't really care what you think if I'm doing a good job or not. I care what the vets think.
I should show you this. Give me Isaiah's fourth thing. This is from the panel we did with some veterans. I just want you to listen to Isaiah James, who is an infantryman who served in Iraq and Afghanistan.
I was a healthy kid when I went in the Army. I could run 5 miles like it was nothing. Now I can barely breathe at night and have to use a breathing machine and go through breathing treatments and all these things. And the United States military and the government doesn't give a damn about us once we're out. Once you're out, they do not care. If another country was doing to our veterans what we allow to be done to our veterans, we'd be at war already.
That's hard to hear. Clearly, you would agree with his sentiments, I think, to some extent.
I agree with all of his sentiment, each and every bit of it.
Right.
And so you're asking a very logical question, which is, okay, so do you need 3 papers from 5 researchers, or what is it? And,
right.
And I don't know the answer to that.
But if you don't know the answer, how do you know when you found it? I guess I'm trying to figure out, as the executive, you could do this in the stroke of a pen.
I wish I could, but I can't. I've asked for that. I've asked.
My point is, I still can't understand what this bar is that you talk about. That's a statute. Because if I look at the statute,
I wish it were like a puzzle. I keep asking the same series of questions.
Right.
Okay, so we got all these pieces, and just tell me where to put them, and then let's figure out which piece we're missing, and then we'll build that.
right,
I'm looking at all the options available to me,
Right.
especially on as I said to you earlier, the most difficult cases. Not even guys just like Isaiah, who's clearly paid a huge price. And I'm trying to figure out, how do we get him into our care in a timely way, and then we can figure out the benefits later.
this delay is killing people. I mean, I think that's not hyperbole. This is about taking care of a problem that we caused through our negligence to our own service people.
I think you're trying to get me to rebut that notion, and I'm
No,
telling
I'm
you,
not.
and I'm telling you, I'm not rebutting that notion.
I understand that.
And
I'm trying to get you to, I honestly, I think I'm trying to get you to say the system can't tolerate it right now. We need to expand that system and make changes to that system, and that takes money, and this is what I need from
I
Congress.
don't believe that to be the case.
Would we be better served by beginning a process of implementation with auditing on the back end of it? Because, you know, I look at the 9/11 program, right? It puts people in a preventative screening program. It gives them treatment for these toxic exposures from experts. It's a program that very clearly can be scaled up. Why not announce a 5-year implementation program as opposed to a individual disease to disease? I mean, why take the tack you're taking and not that one?
What I'm doing right now, I believe that helped us in the first instance establish the presumption that these 3 conditions are service-connected. And I am hopeful, and I will push the system to establish that condition, that presumption for other conditions. And I think I can only get more by this process that I've put in place and by putting pressure on our experts, who I think are the best in the world.
In that process, is there anything that you need to help expedite that?
I really want vets to file their claims. We can actually draw some conclusions about the experience of people there as a cohort.
Last question, then I'll let you go. Last question. If you're satisfied that the process will never provide you that cohort study, that perfect double-blind, is there an expedited process of presumption that you would be satisfied to move forward with?
You know, I guess what I'd say is I'm trying this process now. If it's impossible and we still end up in this position where we can't get the vets in a timely way, what they need in terms of care, then I would definitely look at anything.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Thanks, man.
Thanks.